The U.S. military carried out another lethal airstrike against alleged drug smuggling boats in the Caribbean just over the weekend. Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth said a U.S. designated terrorist group was operating the vessel, but didn't name the group.
I don't think we're going to necessarily ask for a declaration of war. I think we're just going to people that are bringing drugs into our country. Okay, we're going to kill them.
Continue our coverage this evening of the local state employee who was arrested and terminated from his position after several kilograms of suspected cocaine were seized. And I have a look at what happened in court today.
A senior state operations officer was arrested and terminated after multiple kilograms of suspected cocaine were seized inside his own government office. Today, we learned what unfolded in court. The judge spoke softly. The evidence did not. It landed like an iron bar on a glass table. 8 kilograms. Inside a sealed courier box with a tamper strip that had been lifted and resealed with a heat wand. Not on a pier at midnight. Not in the trunk of a rusted sedan behind a shuttered bar. In a room that hosts budget briefings and school funding announcements. The seat of public trust, repurposed into a private pipeline. No armed invader at the gate. No foreign cell forcing its way in. A badge at the front desk waving the poison through. If you want to know how deep the rot goes, we are going deeper.
Child knows what that meant. If you're the FBI director and you don't know what that meant assassination. And it says it loud and clear. He's a dirty cop.
At 5:04 a.m., Northbridge City was still a watercolor of streetlights and empty crosswalks. The state operations building hummed with the low drone of vents and the faint clack of a night security keyboard. Then the tone changed. The DEA entered with FBI tactical support, a silent river that knew every bend in the stairwell. Boots, breath, the snap of gloves. A steel door flexed and surrendered with a single hard strike. Papers fluttered in the air conditioning. Certificates and portraits hung in tidy rows. Words like integrity and stewardship looked down from polished frames. The sealed courier box sat on the conference table like a prop that did not understand the scene it had wandered into. The lid lifted. The room changed shape. 8 bricks of cocaine. A compact pistol. 2 magazines taped bottom to bottom. An envelope counted down to 38,500 in rubber-banded stacks. The man in cuffs did not blink. He had signed documents with a title that sounded like responsibility, Deputy Director for Interregional Logistics. The laptop on his desk would explain what responsibility had meant. If you are still watching, you already understand this is not simply about drugs. It is about infiltration, process, and paperwork, weaponized against the people it was created to serve. Digital forensics started before the sky turned gray. The encryption on the laptop was not government standard. It was a private fortress. The screen stayed black, then glitchy, then suddenly obedient after hours of work most viewers never see but should. Files unfolded like a map hidden in the binding of a book. Shipment ledgers, mailroom schedules, dock codes tied to delivery windows that matched government office hours, because nothing hides better than normal. 19 consignments over 14 months, 8 to 20 kilos each. Drop points inside municipal storage, evidence barns that no one audits because the label evidence does half the intimidation by itself, and state mailrooms that process thousands of boxes a week without checking the one that matters. You have heard the chatter about counterfeit pills made to look like medicine. You have heard the word fentanyl so many times it can lose its severity until a chair at a family table stays empty for the first holiday. Meth tablets pressed into imitation therapy. Cocaine crystals wrapped with warehouse labels that mimic misprints. The trick is not hiding in darkness. The trick is hiding in routine.
The cartels are all suppressing methamphetamine tablets, and these look exactly like an Adderall pill.
Fake pills, fentanyl sticks, methamphetamine.
Crystals, these are from Mexico.
These are just some of the 500 pounds of drugs seized in a federal crackdown on the Sinaloa cartel.
The deeper the analysts went, the uglier the titles became. Not street names, not alley nicknames whispered on corners. Titles from payroll lists, patrol officer, deputy sheriff, court clerk, property control technician, procurement aide, each was a hinge. Turn every hinge in sequence and a door swings open wide enough for an empire. It did. The money trail was worse than the product. 2 private gaming rooms hidden in plain sight behind innocuous storefronts. No neon, no crowds, just coded buzzers and back tables where chips became cash, and cash became wire transfers into shell companies that live only on paper in quiet jurisdictions. A nonprofit with a cheerful mission statement banked $11.3 million in 2 years. The donors were ghosts. The programs were invoices with different dates and the same paragraphs. Contracts for community safety trainings and after-school workshops that never occurred. Payments drifted toward consulting retainers and security scholarships with no students listed. Every time the money put on a clean mask, a neighborhood paid. Complex machines look invincible because they overwhelm you. They rely on timing, sign-offs, tamper seals. People who are too busy to ask the one question that would ruin the game. When a machine like this needs the clock, you break the clock. At 3:41 a.m., in a federal command room outside the city, a state map glowed with red. Each pin was a location where the machine touched the ground. Storage units with 2 names on the lease, safe apartments hiding behind short-term rental portals, municipal loading bays that shepherded pallets labeled as insulation, produce, metal fixtures. At 4 a.m., a single command arrived on the secure screen. Action. All units, 14 targets, 14 minutes, no warnings, no escape ladders.
FBI operation ended in dozens arrested, including police officers, sheriff's deputies, and 2 sheriffs.
Packages in Millbridge, an auto yard whose neon sign blinked open once an hour like a heartbeat that had forgotten its job. A door banged inward. Agents moved in a smooth tide. 3 men reached for pistols and learned that 9 seconds is a lifetime when you are late to your own fight. In Southport, a warehouse stacked with crates of lettuce and carrots bled cold air. Under the tarps, 200 pounds of cocaine and 90 pounds of fentanyl sat like white thunder. In the River Ward, a garage camera caught motion, and 2 silhouettes with rifles sprinted for the alley. A helicopter scratched the sky. The loudspeaker did not ask. It commanded. Drop your weapons. You are surrounded. Light ripped from rifle barrels. The alley coughed smoke. Agents moved with the patience of people who train to turn panic into steps. 9 minutes later, the night sagged back into quiet. 2 bodies on the ground. 3 suspects in flex cuffs. No ignorance about where the bullets went. Precision does not brag. It files reports and goes home. Sunrise brought a number wall that refused to fit on a thumbnail. 47 arrests. 1.2 tons of narcotics across multiple sites. 129 firearms, including illegal builds and foreign imports that are not supposed to be here. A braided mess of phones, drives, accounts, and ledgers that will take months to untangle on paper, even though the pattern is already clear enough for the human eye. News helicopters started their circles. Neighbors opened blinds and watched without speaking. Relief and betrayal lived in the same breath and made it taste like metal. Raids are the front door. Houses have more rooms. Inside the State Analysis Center, rows of screens flickered like a storm grid. Agents, analysts, financial crime specialists, and cyber teams worked shoulder to shoulder. Every drive mirrored, every message parsed, every press release and invoice stacked and peeled apart like bark until the rings lined up. What emerged was not a street atlas, it was a power map. 4 main distribution corridors hid inside legitimate trucking routes. Produce, hardware, insulation, seasonal retail, anything that explains pallets, seals, and forklifts. The Northbridge seizure was not a beginning. It was an endpoint in a pipeline that began far away and threaded through towns that repeat the sentence "it cannot happen here" right up until it does. The storage network wore charity logos and food bank signs, cold rooms packed with boxes. Behind the frozen peas, bricks with symbols that read like hieroglyphs until you learn the code for purity, cut, and destination. The financial arteries pumped through invitations and private doors. Quiet gaming rooms where chips converted to a language banks accept. shell companies that existed in files but did not exist in rooms. A nonprofit smiling from a website, pushing photos of community outreach while booking speakers and consultants no one ever met. 11.3 million laundered with a gentle font and stock photography. When crime studies public relations, it buys a printer and starts scheduling ribbon cuttings. The most painful pins on the wall were not addresses. They were desks, approval signatures, stamps, boring steps, which is why they are so powerful. The cartel did not hide under the bed. It rented the room and hung up a calendar. So the next phase avoided speed and chose certainty. At dawn, unmarked vans rolled toward precincts and offices. This time, agents did not move like a storm. They moved like time. A warrant at the front entrance is not loud. It is final. A lieutenant with 23 years on the clock whispered something to himself as his badge and sidearm were removed. A detective with plaques on the wall folded his hands in front of him as his own cuffs clicked. A procurement aide watched as envelopes labeled community outreach sank into evidence bags, still warm from a printer that had promised a better neighborhood. 17 officers, 2 administrators, 1 state procurement advisor, in custody before lunch. Inside the rooms, some people stared at the floor, some stared at the ceiling, some stared straight ahead because if they moved their faces, the water might start falling. On the sidewalk, an older man held a folded flag he once donated to the precinct after his son's funeral. He did not shout. He did not curse. He stared at the door and looked like someone reading a language he used to know and suddenly could not. Small crowds gathered across town, anger, sorrow, silence. The hardest sentence settled in and refused to leave. It was not strangers at the gate. It was neighbors with keys. By evening, the governor addressed the state. No booming cadence, no advertising, a low, steady voice carrying a cracked foundation on its back. If the shield is used to harm the people, the shield is broken. And when the shield is broken, we repair it. We do not look away. An integrity review task force formed that night. Separate reporting structure. Full audit authority across departments, procurement lines, transfer logs, and training funds. The mission statement was 5 lines long and not poetic. Restore trust where it was stolen. Rebuild systems where they were abused. Protect communities where they were misled. Name the names. Publish the audits. Invite the public to watch. The first arrest now looks small because it was not the story. It was the alarm. It told us how short the distance can be between a family home and a cartel ledger when an oath loses its meaning. When the last door closed and the last ledger was scanned, the room did not fill with applause. It filled with the kind of quiet that weighs something. This was never only about bricks on a table, cash in an envelope, or rifles in a crate. This was always about trust between people and the institutions that carry weapons, budgets, and power on our behalf. That trust did not break because of some distant enemy. It cracked because hands on the inside pressed against it. The state that was infiltrated also fought back. Not with denial, not with showy speeches, with subpoenas, with audits, with names said clearly into microphones rather than whispered in hallways, with badges collected and logged, with warrants that treat the powerful like everyone else on the day the paper is served. There is one question that matters now, and it does not belong to a narrator. What do we do next? Corruption does not leave because a map turned red for a morning. Cartels do not change careers because a door came off its hinges. Trust does not knit itself together while we look the other way. This is not only about Northbridge or Springfield or any single city you can find with a pin and a compass. It is about every place that wears the sentence "we are immune" like a charm bracelet until it snaps. It is about every office where a rubber stamp becomes a weapon because no one checked the hand behind it. It is about every community that has a fundraising banner on the wall while someone at a desk siphons the future into a shell account that will never buy a school desk or a clinic bed. So here is what happens next in the rooms you do not see on the evening news. Analysts will crawl through account statements that look like wallpaper. A phone seized from a drawer will unlock at 3 a.m. and dump messages that sound like grocery lists until you set them next to shipping manifests. A camera at the back of a parking lot will show the same white van at the same minute every Tuesday, and suddenly time becomes a confession. A clerk who thinks no one noticed will notice that everyone suddenly has. And a neighborhood that felt helpless will wake up to the simplest power in a republic. Eyes on the process, names on a page, questions at a microphone that is not afraid. If you want this fight to continue, do the one thing the machine hates. Keep light on it. Tap like, so the algorithm does not bury this story. Comment shield or silence, so we know who is still here at the end and who wants the next chapter. Subscribe if you want to follow every step we can responsibly share without compromising the work. Because the war for integrity is not an event. It is a posture, it is a habit, it is a community deciding to stay awake. The next network will not fall this quietly. It never does once the first one gets dragged into daylight, but the next one will fall. Not because the state is perfect, because people who were told to look away decided not to, because someone watched a loading dock and wrote down a plate, because a teacher noticed a packaging code on a label that did not belong in a box of donated supplies, because a clerk used a boring skill 1,000 times and then used it differently once. The badge is supposed to be a shield. When it fails, the response must be simple. Repair the shield. Remove the hands that bent it. Tell the truth out loud so the next pair of hands hesitates. That is how you win. Not in a day. In the stubbornness of days. When you leave this video and step back into your life, remember the lesson hiding beneath the numbers. This story was never just about narcotics or cash or weapons. It was about the space between a person and their government, which is supposed to be thin. It became thick with lies and contacts and forged couriers and private doors. Now it becomes thin again, not because one raid wiped the slate clean, but because enough people refused to pretend the slate was clean when it was not. If you are still here, you are the kind of person who does not look away. Stay that way. The shield will only stand if enough of us hold it up and watch it closely. Tap like so this does not vanish from feeds that prefer noise over clarity. Comment shield or silence so we know where you stand. And subscribe so you are here the next time a map goes red at 4 a.m. and a door gives way and a lie that has been living in daylight finally runs out of places to hide.